December 24th, 1944, a farmhouse southwest of Bastogne, Belgium. Hauptmann Dieter Müller, artillery commander for the 26th Volksgrenadier Division, carefully recorded his calculations in the frozen pages of his fire direction log. His battery had fired 43 shells that morning, supporting an infantry assault against American positions defending the Crossroads town. Standard procedure: measured fire, ammunition conservation. Then the American counter-battery response arrived, not in minutes, in seconds. Müller counted the impacts: 57 shells, 62, 81. The barrage continued for 90 seconds. Over 200 American shells struck his battery position and the surrounding forest. His crews scattered. 2 guns were damaged, 3 men killed, 7 wounded. Müller checked his watch. From the moment his own guns fired to the moment American shells began impacting, less than 3 minutes had elapsed. This wasn't artillery as he understood it. This was something unprecedented, something that defied every calculation he'd made based on 4 years of warfare. The Americans weren't just firing more shells, they were firing at rates that seemed physically impossible. That evening, Müller received his daily ammunition allocation from division headquarters, 50 shells, total, for all 6 guns in his battery. He had just witnessed the Americans fire more than 200 shells at his single battery in 90 seconds. The mathematics didn't work. The Germans couldn't match this. They couldn't even comprehend it. What Müller had encountered was the American artillery system at full capacity, a system that during the Battle of the Bulge would fire 1,255,000 rounds from 4,155 guns. A fire rate that German artillery officers, trained in careful ammunition management and precise targeting, found literally incomprehensible. The story of Bastogne is often told through the lens of the 101st Airborne Division's desperate defense. General McAuliffe's famous "nuts" response to German surrender demands, General Patton's dramatic relief column. But the actual weapon that broke the German offensive wasn't courage or determination, though those were present in abundance. It was artillery. American artillery firing at rates and with coordination that German forces had never encountered and could not counter. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. To understand Müller's shock, you must first understand what German artillery doctrine expected. In 1944, German artillery was still considered among the world's finest. The Wehrmacht had refined artillery tactics through 5 years of warfare across Europe, from Poland to France to Russia to North Africa. German gunners were professionals, their equipment was effective. Their fire direction methods were proven. German artillery in the Ardennes offensive began with advantages. The initial barrage on December 16th employed 1,600 artillery pieces, firing across an 80-mile front for 90 minutes. This massive preparation demonstrated Germany's commitment to the offensive. It represented a concentration of firepower that German commanders believed would overwhelm American defenses. But German artillery operated under constraints that would become critical. Ammunition supplies were limited. The German war economy, under relentless Allied bombing, could not produce shells at pre-war rates. More critically, transportation networks were collapsing. Getting ammunition from factories to batteries required fuel and trucks. Germany lacked both. German artillery battalions received daily ammunition allocations. These allocations were calculated based on available supply, not tactical necessity. A typical German artillery battery in December 1944 received between 40 and 60 shells per gun per day, sometimes less. Fire missions required approval from battalion or regimental headquarters. Every shell had to be justified. This created a deliberate, measured approach to artillery employment. German forward observers called for fire. Battalion headquarters evaluated the request. If approved, firing calculations were made, guns were prepared, fire missions were executed with precision. The process took time. 10 to 15 minutes from initial observation to shells impacting was considered efficient. Müller's own battery typified this system. His 6 105mm howitzers represented standard German divisional artillery. Good guns. Effective range of over 11 kilometers. Capable of firing 15 rounds per minute per gun under ideal conditions. But Müller never fired at such rates. His ammunition allocation wouldn't permit it. On December 19th, supporting the 26th Volksgrenadier Division's advance toward Bastogne, Müller's battery fired 38 shells, the entire day, supporting multiple infantry attacks, conducting counter-battery fire against identified American artillery positions. 38 shells represented a heavy day of firing by German standards in late 1944. The German artillery pieces themselves were diverse. Unlike American standardization, German forces employed captured French guns, Czech guns, Soviet guns, and their own various models. Müller's division included 105mm howitzers, 150mm howitzers, and even some captured American equipment. This diversity created logistical nightmares. Different calibers required different ammunition, different propellant charges, different firing tables. German artillery transportation remained predominantly horse-drawn. Despite Nazi propaganda showing mechanized Wehrmacht divisions, approximately 80% of German artillery moved by horse. Each gun required 6 to 8 horses. Movement was slow. In winter conditions with snow and ice, relocating an artillery battery could take hours. This immobility was critical. Once German artillery established firing positions, they remained there. Displacement took too long, exposed guns to air attack and counter-battery fire. German batteries tried to fire and then immediately move, but often they fired and remained in place, hoping camouflage and concealment would protect them. American artillery operated under entirely different principles. Principles forged not through 5 years of warfare economy restrictions, but through 2 years of unlimited industrial production and systematic doctrinal development. The Americans had taken artillery employment and engineered it like an assembly line. Efficient, repeatable, overwhelming. The foundation was standardization. American artillery divisions deployed M2A1 105mm howitzers. Every division had 36 of these guns organized into 3 battalions of 12 guns each. Additionally, each division had 12 M1 155mm howitzers in a separate heavy battalion. This standardization meant ammunition was interchangeable. Every 105mm shell fit every 105mm gun. Propellant charges were identical. Firing tables were universal. An ammunition truck arriving at any 105mm battery carried shells that would work in every gun. More significantly, American artillery was fully motorized. Every gun was towed by a truck or half-track. These vehicles could move at highway speeds. Displacing an American artillery battalion took 30 to 40 minutes, not hours, minutes. Batteries could fire their mission, relocate, and be ready to fire again before German batteries had even begun their displacement. But mobility and standardization were merely prerequisites. The genuine revolution was the fire direction center. American artillery had transformed fire control from individual battery operations into a unified system. Every fire mission went through a fire direction center that could coordinate fire from every available gun. The FDC concept was simple but revolutionary. Instead of each battery calculating its own firing solutions, all data went to a central location. The FDC received target coordinates from forward observers, calculated which batteries could engage the target, computed firing data for each battery simultaneously, coordinated the firing so all shells arrived at the target at the same instant. This was time on target, the most sophisticated artillery technique ever developed. Shells fired from batteries at different distances from the target, fired at different times, calculated so precisely that every shell arrived within a 3-second window. The effect was instant devastation. No warning, no ranging shots, no gradual build-up. Silence. Then, hellfire. American forward observers operated with advantages German artillery could only dream of. They used FM radios that provided clear, interference-free communication. German forces still primarily used AM radios plagued by static. American radios were also far more numerous. Every American infantry battalion had multiple radio-equipped forward observers. German battalions typically operated with one or two radios shared between units. More critically, American forward observers could request fire from any available artillery, not just their organic battalion. An American lieutenant acting as forward observer could call down fire from an entire corps artillery. Dozens of batteries, hundreds of guns, within minutes. Hauptmann Müller experienced this capability firsthand on December 21st. His battery was supporting an attack on American positions near Marvy, southeast of Bastogne. The Germans advanced through morning fog. Initial success seemed promising. Then, an American L-4 Grasshopper observation aircraft appeared overhead. Müller recognized the threat immediately. He had encountered these aircraft in Normandy. Small, slow, unarmed, but deadly. Not because of what they carried, but because of what followed their appearance. He ordered his crews to prepare for counter-battery fire. Standard procedure. Expect American artillery within 10 minutes. The first shells arrived in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Not from one battery, from multiple batteries firing simultaneously. Müller counted distinct impact patterns from at least 3 different batteries, over 100 shells in 90 seconds. His carefully camouflaged position became a crater field. The attack his battery was supporting collapsed as German infantry took cover from their own artillery positions being obliterated. What Müller couldn't know was the system behind this response. The Grasshopper observer had radioed target coordinates. An American FDC received the information. Within seconds, 3 105mm batteries and one 155mm battery had calculated firing solutions. The FDC coordinated a time-on-target shoot. Every gun fired at precisely calculated intervals. Every shell arrived simultaneously. The psychological impact on German forces was devastating. They had learned survival techniques against Soviet artillery: wait for ranging shots, move between salvos, seek cover when barrage intensified. None of these techniques worked against American artillery. There were no ranging shots, no salvos, no gradual build-up, instant concentrated fire that gave no time to react. Lieutenant Friedrich Koch, a German infantry company commander besieging Bastogne, documented his experience in a letter discovered after his capture. "We cannot move in daylight. American aircraft observe everything. Within minutes, artillery fire arrives. Not scattered fire, concentrated fire on our exact position. We lose men before we can take cover. At night we advance, but even in darkness, American artillery finds us. We advance 100 meters. Artillery stops us. We retreat. Artillery follows us. It is impossible." The artillery pieces themselves demonstrated American industrial capacity. The M2A, 105mm howitzer, was manufactured to precise tolerances at Rock Island Arsenal and other facilities. By World War II's conclusion, 8,536 M2A1 howitzers had been produced, enough to equip every division with spares. These howitzers could fire 25 shells per minute in sustained fire missions. With proper ammunition supply, a single American battery of 12 guns could fire 300 shells in 1 minute. Compare this to Müller's battery receiving 50 shells for an entire day. A single American battery could fire more shells in 20 seconds than Müller's battery was allocated for 24 hours. The ammunition itself represented another American advantage. While Germany struggled with production inconsistencies, American shells were manufactured to exacting standards: consistent propellant, consistent projectile weight, consistent performance. American gunners could rely on their firing tables with confidence. More critically, American ammunition supply was effectively unlimited. Industrial production in the United States was beyond German comprehension. Factories operated 24 hours. Raw materials were abundant. Transportation networks were untouched by bombing. Ammunition moved from factories to ports to depots to batteries in a continuous logistics pipeline. During the Ardennes offensive, American artillery units faced no ammunition restrictions until the initial German breakthrough disrupted supply lines. Even during Bastogne's encirclement, when ammunition was briefly restricted to 10 rounds per gun per day, this represented a temporary supply interruption, not a systemic shortage. Once weather cleared and aerial resupply resumed, American batteries returned to unlimited fire missions. December 23rd. The weather cleared. American C-47 transport aircraft appeared over Bastogne. Parachutes blossomed across the sky. Red parachutes carried ammunition. White parachutes carried medical supplies. Yellow parachutes carried food, but primarily ammunition, thousands of shells. Müller watched from his position southwest of the town. He counted aircraft, noted the resupply drops, calculated approximately what the Americans were receiving. His own ammunition supply had been exhausted the previous day. His battery had fired their daily allocation by noon. Division headquarters informed him no resupply was available. Fuel shortages prevented ammunition trucks from reaching forward positions. His battery sat idle. 6 guns, trained crews, no ammunition. Meanwhile, across the perimeter at Bastogne, American artillery batteries were receiving thousands of shells from aerial resupply. The disparity was incomprehensible. On December 24th, Müller received 23 shells, not his requested 50. 23. Division apologized. Transport difficulties. The Americans, he observed, appeared to have no such difficulties. Their guns fired continuously. Heavy barrages that lasted minutes. Concentrations that seemed to have no regard for ammunition conservation. That evening, German intelligence provided Müller with captured American artillery unit logs. He studied them with professional interest. One American battalion, the 463rd Parachute Field Artillery, had fired 7,676 rounds between December 19th and December 31st, 13 days, an average of 590 shells per day. Müller calculated comparative figures. His battery, with 6 guns, was allocated approximately 300 shells per week, 50 shells per day maximum. The American battalion had 12 guns. They fired nearly 600 shells per day. The American battalion fired in one day what Müller's battery was allocated for 12 days. The mathematics were devastating. The American battalion was firing 10 times Müller's allocation, not because American guns were better, the guns were comparable, but because American logistics could sustain such fire rates while German logistics could not. The technological superiority extended beyond logistics. American artillery employed the variable time fuse, the VT fuse, a miniature radar device that revolutionized artillery effectiveness. The VT fuse contained a radio transmitter in the shell's nose. As the shell approached the ground, reflected radio signals triggered detonation at optimal height, typically 10 to 20 meters above ground. Conventional time fuses required calculating precise flight time, setting the fuse accordingly. Wind, temperature, barrel wear, all affected accuracy. Small errors meant shells exploding, too high or burying themselves before detonation. The VT fuse eliminated these variables. Every shell detonated at optimal height regardless of conditions. General Dwight Eisenhower personally requested authorization to employ VT fuses during the Ardennes engagement. Initial Pentagon refusal cited security concerns. The technology might fall into German hands. Eisenhower argued that effectiveness justified the risk. Authorization came on December 19th through 21st, 1944, the first employment of VT fuses against ground forces in the European theatre. The effect was catastrophic for German forces. German infantry had learned survival techniques against conventional artillery. Drop flat at the first explosion. Seek any ground depression. Even shallow cover provided protection from horizontal fragments. VT-fused shells exploded above troops. Fragments rained downward. Men in foxholes, men who should have been protected, were struck by fragments falling vertically. Obergrafreiter Hans Schmidt, serving with the 26th Volksgrenadier Division, survived a VT fuse barrage and recorded his experience in a diary recovered after his capture. We called them demon shells. They explode in the air above us. No warning, no time to take cover. The fragments come down like hail. Men in foxholes are killed. Men behind walls are killed. There is no defense except deep bunkers, and we have no time to construct deep bunkers. We simply wait for the shells and pray. The psychological impact matched the physical destruction. German soldiers trained to respond to artillery found their training useless. Every instinct, every survival technique learned through years of combat was negated. The knowledge that no cover short of overhead protection would provide safety-induced paralysis. Some German units refused to leave defensive positions even under direct orders because movement meant exposure to American artillery. December 25th, Christmas Day. German forces launched their final major assault against Bastogne. The attack came from multiple directions. Heavy infantry, supported by armour. The 26th Volksgrenadier Division attacked from the northwest. Panzer Lehr Division elements struck from the southwest. The Führer Grenadier Brigade pushed from the northeast. The attacks were coordinated, timed to overwhelm American defences through simultaneous pressure. German commanders believed that if all attacks succeeded simultaneously, the perimeter would collapse. They committed their remaining reserves, concentrated their available artillery support. This was the decisive push. American artillery responded with unprecedented intensity. The 463rd Parachute Field Artillery Battalion fired over 400 rounds that day. The 321st Glider Field Artillery Battalion fired similar numbers. The 427th Glider Field Artillery Battalion, the 969th Field Artillery Battalion, and attached corps artillery all engaged German formations as they approached American lines. The time-on-target technique proved decisive. German infantry advancing across open ground encountered instant concentrations. No warning, no gradual build-up. Silence. Then dozens of shells arriving simultaneously. The effect on unit cohesion was devastating. Companies became scattered. Officers lost control. Attacks dissolved into chaos. Müller's battery was ordered to support the 26th Volksgrenadier Division's attack. He had 31 shells, his allocation for Christmas Day. He divided the shells across his 6 guns, 5 shells per gun, 1 shell held in reserve. His crews prepared for the fire mission. The German infantry advanced at dawn. Müller's battery fired their support mission, 30 shells in 6 minutes. Standard suppression fire on identified American positions. Then they waited for resupply that never arrived. His guns sat silent while across the perimeter American artillery fired continuously. Müller observed the American counter-battery fire through binoculars. He counted muzzle flashes, estimated at least 20 American guns firing simultaneously, calculated fire rates. Conservative estimates suggested American batteries were firing over 500 shells during the same period. His battery fired 30. The disparity was absolute. The German attacks failed. Every sector. Casualties were severe. The 26th Volksgrenadier Division lost over 400 men. Panzer Lehr elements withdrew under heavy artillery fire. The Führer Grenadier Brigade's attack stalled before reaching American lines. Artillery had broken every assault before German forces closed with American infantry. Lieutenant Colonel John Cooper, commander of the 463rd Parachute Field Artillery Battalion, later described the defense in after-action reports preserved in American military archives. We fired time-on-target missions almost continuously. The FDC coordinated fire from multiple battalions. German forces, advancing across open ground, were caught in concentrations that arrived without warning. The effect was immediate. Attacks dissolved. We observed German troops retreating in disorder. Artillery alone stopped several major assaults before our infantry fired a shot. The artillery ammunition expenditure during Bastogne's siege demonstrated the fundamental disparity. During the period from December 19th to December 31st, The 463rd Parachute Field Artillery alone fired 7,676 rounds. One battalion, 13 days. Other American artillery battalions defending Bastogne fired comparable amounts. Conservative estimates suggest American artillery defending Bastogne fired over 40,000 rounds during the siege. This figure includes only direct fire support for the perimeter defense. It excludes corps artillery firing deeper targets. It excludes harassing and interdiction fires. It excludes counter-battery missions against German artillery positions. 40,000 rounds. Compare this to German artillery supporting the siege. Intelligence estimates suggested German forces committed approximately 60 to 80 artillery pieces to operations around Bastogne. These guns fired an estimated 1,500 to 2,000 rounds total during the same period. The Americans outfired German forces by ratios exceeding 20 to 1. The industrial mathematics were inescapable. American artillery fired more shells in one day than German artillery fired in a week. American battalions received more ammunition in one resupply drop than German divisions received in a month. The disparity wasn't tactical. It was systemic. It was the inevitable result of American industrial capacity meeting German logistical collapse. Müller understood this on December 26 when elements of General Patton's 4th Armored Division broke through from the south. He watched American armor and infantry advance. But more significantly, he watched American artillery batteries displace forward, trucks towing guns, ammunition trucks following, the entire artillery train moving at speed. His own battery remained in position, no fuel to displace, no ammunition to fire even if they displaced, no horses available because 3 had died from malnutrition and exhaustion. His guns were intact, his crews were capable. But his battery was combat ineffective due to logistics alone. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. The relief of Bastogne didn't end the artillery story. It emphasized it. As American forces transitioned from defense to offense, artillery support intensified. The broader Battle of the Bulge saw American artillery employment reach unprecedented levels. 4,155 American guns fired 1,255,000 rounds during the entire engagement. 1,255,000 rounds. To comprehend this figure, consider that it represents approximately 300 rounds per gun over a 40-day engagement. Some individual battalions fired far more. The sustained fire rate averaged over 30,000 rounds per day across the entire front. German forces could not match this. German artillery in the Ardennes numbered approximately 2,600 pieces at the offensive start. By early January 1945, combat losses and logistical failures had reduced this to fewer than 1,500 operational guns. More critically, German ammunition supply had collapsed entirely. Oberst Heinrich Werner, artillery commander for the 5th Panzer Army, documented the supply crisis in post-war interrogations conducted by American historical officers. His testimony, preserved in military archives, revealed the extent of German logistical failure. By January 1st, my artillery battalions reported ammunition stocks at less than 10% of authorized levels. Some batteries had no shells at all. I requested emergency resupply from Army headquarters. I was informed that no ammunition was available. Transportation networks had collapsed. Fuel shortages prevented delivery even when shells were available. My artillery was effectively neutralized not by American counter-battery fire, though that was severe, but by our own supply failures. The contrast with American supply was absolute. American ammunition arrived by truck convoy, by rail, by airdrop. Multiple redundant supply routes ensured continuous delivery. When roads were blocked, aircraft dropped supplies. When weather-grounded aircraft, trucks found alternate routes. The American logistics system was flexible, redundant, and overwhelming. American artillery forward observers operated with confidence, knowing fire support was unlimited. German forward observers, when they possessed functioning radios, hesitated to request fire missions, knowing ammunition was scarce. This psychological disparity affected tactical decision-making at every level. American infantry commanders planned operations assuming unlimited artillery support. They could request preparatory fires, suppression fires, interdiction fires, harassment fires, illumination fires, smoke fires. Every tactical situation had an artillery solution. German infantry commanders planned operations assuming minimal artillery support. They relied on infantry assault, close combat, and night movement to avoid American artillery. The casualty statistics reflected artillery's dominance. Post-war analysis conducted by the United States Army indicated that artillery caused approximately 65% of German casualties during the Battle of the Bulge, not infantry weapons, not tanks, not aircraft, artillery. The majority of German soldiers who became casualties were struck by artillery fragments before ever seeing American infantry. Lieutenant Hans Becker, company commander in the 5th Parachute Division, was wounded by American artillery on January 3, 1945. His post-war testimony provided perspective on German infantry experience. We advanced at night to avoid American observation aircraft, but even at night, American artillery found us. Illumination rounds lit the area like daylight. Then, high explosive followed. We took casualties before reaching our assault positions. During the assault, artillery fire disrupted our formations. After the assault failed, artillery fire pursued us during withdrawal. We lost more men to artillery than to direct combat with American infantry. The fire direction system's sophistication enabled American artillery to engage multiple targets simultaneously. A single FDC could coordinate fire missions from dozens of batteries, prioritize targets, shift fires, maintain continuous coverage. German artillery, lacking centralized fire direction, could not achieve such coordination. American artillery battalions also displaced forward aggressively. As infantry advanced, artillery moved to maintain range. The standard procedure was continuous displacement. Batteries fired their missions, limbered their guns, moved forward, established new positions, and resumed firing. The entire cycle took 30 to 40 minutes. German artillery, horse-drawn and fuel-starved, could not maintain such mobility. Batteries that displaced risked being caught during movement. Batteries that remained in position risked destruction by counter-battery fire. German artillery commanders faced impossible choices: move and risk being caught exposed, stay and risk being destroyed in position. American counter-battery fire was relentless. Aerial observers identified German artillery positions. Coordinates were transmitted. FDC calculated firing solutions. Time on target missions neutralized German batteries before they could displace. The systematic destruction of German artillery reached industrial efficiency. Hauptmann Müller's battery was destroyed on January 7, 1945. Not by direct assault, by counter-battery fire. An American observation aircraft spotted his position. 3 minutes later, over 80 shells arrived simultaneously. 2 guns were destroyed, 1 gun damaged beyond field repair, 11 men killed, 17 wounded. The battery ceased to exist as a combat unit. Müller survived with minor wounds. He was captured 3 days later during the German retreat. American intelligence officers interrogated him about German artillery operations. His testimony provided valuable insights into German perspectives on American artillery. "We could not comprehend the ammunition expenditure," Müller told his interrogators. "We received 50 shells per day. The Americans fired 50 shells per minute. We calculated firing solutions carefully to conserve ammunition. The Americans fired without apparent concern for conservation. We displaced our guns cautiously to preserve mobility. The Americans displaced aggressively without fear of being caught. The disparity was absolute. We were fighting a poor man's operation against an adversary with unlimited resources." The broader Battle of the Bulge concluded in late January 1945. German forces withdrew to their starting positions. The offensive had failed completely. Casualties were severe. German forces lost between 80,000 and 100,000 men. American casualties exceeded 80,000, but the strategic result was decisive German defeat. Artillery's role in this defeat cannot be overstated. German commanders acknowledged that artillery fire, more than any other factor, stopped their offensive. The inability to move in daylight due to observation aircraft and immediate artillery response, the inability to concentrate forces due to time-on-target concentrations, the inability to sustain operations due to counter-battery fire destroying German artillery. General Heinrich von Luttwitz, commander of the 47th Panzer Corps that besieged Bastogne, provided post-war assessment in interrogations. American artillery was the decisive weapon. We could not advance against it. We could not defend against it. Every movement we made was observed and engaged. Every concentration we formed was disrupted. The weight of fire was beyond anything we had experienced on the Eastern Front. The coordination was flawless. We had no effective counter. The technological and industrial superiority, represented by American artillery at Bastogne, became the template for modern warfare. The principles established during the Battle of the Bulge, centralized fire direction, time-on-target coordination, unlimited ammunition expenditure, aerial observation integration, remain fundamental to artillery employment today. Modern artillery systems are vastly more sophisticated. Digital fire control, GPS-guided munitions, automated targeting. But the core concept remains unchanged. Artillery is most effective when employed as a unified system with centralized control, abundant ammunition, and responsive coordination. The German experience at Bastogne demonstrated what happens when artillery employment is constrained by logistics. Even well-trained crews with effective equipment become combat ineffective when ammunition supply fails. Even sound tactical doctrine becomes irrelevant when fire rates cannot match the enemy's. Hauptmann Müller spent the remainder of the war in a prisoner camp in Belgium. He was repatriated to Germany in 1946. In correspondence, written decades later, discovered in German military historical archives, he reflected on his Bastogne experience. We understood we were defeated before Bastogne. The artillery disparity made this clear. We could fire 30 shells while the Americans fired 300. We received ammunition in small daily allocations, while the Americans received ammunition by aerial resupply in tons. The mathematics were inescapable. German courage and tactical skill could not overcome American industrial capacity. The artillery that broke our offensive at Bastogne was not superior through better guns or better crews. It was superior through sheer weight of fire that only unlimited industrial production could sustain. The story of American artillery at Bastogne is ultimately a story about the transformation of warfare in the industrial age. Individual weapons quality mattered less than systemic integration. Tactical skill mattered less than logistical capacity. The side that could produce more ammunition, deliver it reliably, and employ it systematically held decisive advantage. German forces entered the Battle of the Bulge, believing that tactical surprise and concentrated armor could overcome American numerical advantages. They learned that modern warfare had evolved beyond tactics and courage. It had become an industrial contest, and in that contest, American capacity was overwhelming. The artillery system that defended Bastogne represented the culmination of American military-industrial integration. Factories in the United States producing shells by the millions. Transportation networks moving ammunition to Europe without pause. Supply organizations delivering ammunition to batteries without restriction. Fire direction centers coordinating fire from dozens of battalions. Forward observers requesting fire with confidence that support would arrive immediately. This system, perfected during World War II, became the foundation for American military doctrine for the next 80 years. The emphasis on artillery firepower, the reliance on industrial capacity, the integration of observation, communication, and fire direction. These principles established at Bastogne remain central to American military operations today. For the German soldiers who confronted this system, the experience was transformative and terminal. They had entered the war believing in German tactical superiority. They concluded the war understanding that tactical superiority was meaningless against systemic, industrial, overwhelming force. They had faced Soviet artillery on the Eastern Front and survived through skill and adaptation. They faced American artillery in the Ardennes and found no adaptation possible. The numbers tell the story completely. 1,255,000 American artillery rounds fired during the Battle of the Bulge. 4,155 American guns brought into action, sustained fire rates that German logistics could never match and German forces could never counter. Hauptmann Müller's battery receiving 50 shells per day, while American battalions fired 500 rounds per day. This wasn't warfare. This was industrial mathematics applied to combat. The side with greater productive capacity, more efficient logistics, and better systemic integration held absolute advantage. German tactical excellence, proven through 5 years of warfare, became irrelevant when faced with American industrial capacity that could sustain artillery fire rates exceeding German capacity by orders of magnitude. The Battle of the Bulge marked the moment when this reality became undeniable to German military leadership. They had known since Normandy that American material superiority was significant. At Bastogne, they learned it was insurmountable. The artillery fire rates demonstrated during the siege represented capacity that Germany could never match, regardless of how long the war continued. The broader lesson extended beyond World War II. Modern warfare between industrial powers would be determined by productive capacity and logistical efficiency as much as by tactical skill. The military that could produce more ammunition, deliver it more reliably, and employ it more systematically would hold decisive advantage. This lesson, learned at terrible cost in the snows around Bastogne, remains valid today. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now, and don't forget to subscribe.